Welcome everyone. Good evening. It's good evening here, probably somewhere afternoon, night. Wishing you all a very good day. Today we are here for our 45th webinar with an amazing speaker, and the topic is time management. I'll be introducing the speaker in a while. Just wait and watch. Be with us. Thank you for registering and being here at this hour of time. I know it's weekend in UAE. Thank you for your time, and whichever place you are joining in from, be it India, UK, Singapore, anywhere, you're most welcome. And thank you once again for being here with us. So what is NLG all about, and who are we, what we do? So the Networking and Learning Group has been created by Jason Abraham and myself, Sushma. Jason is an amazing personality. You all have been looking at him at different social media channels with his stories all over, and I love what he does. He's on a mission to connect with 100,000 souls, which is an amazing mission. Let's join in together with him. He's a great storyteller, a Canva specialist. I have learned Canva from him, and thank you for that, Jason. He has also taken a session on Canva. If you would like to go ahead and look at it, it is on our YouTube channels. Please go ahead. He's a networking expert, an avid listener, and value content creator. He's audit personnel by profession as well. Myself, I'm an HR professional and an NLP master practitioner, and I love HR. That's what I do. And I am also on a mission to create an impact with a positive difference in everyone's life, because we have so much in ourselves which we might have not discovered. Okay. What we do here, what you see on the screen, there is so much going on behind the screens as well. And this is where our team help us in what all we do. One is Thakyuddin Theparambil. He's a QHSE professional. He's an entrepreneur as well. He's MBA in HR and MSc in biotechnology. We have another gentleman supporting us, Anil Kunaku. He's again an HR professional, an NLP master practitioner, a coach, a mentor. He's currently a Singapore-based university and the students there. He's also a Toastmaster, mood energizer, and a career guide. You see the quotes which we all see in our groups every day from Anil. So Networking and Learning Group is all about how we learn, what we learn, how we share with others, how we are connecting the network. That's all is about Networking and Learning Group. And you can also be a speaker here, sharing your experiences and learnings with us. Do let us know if you would like to share something with us. You can be the speaker here on our platform in few weeks. We have two main themes which we cater to. One is NLG League, which is all about learning and sharing the knowledge and experiences. And the other one is NLG Careers, where we share the vacancies, the job search strategies, and few other aspects in terms of career. We are also available on various social media platforms, Facebook, WhatsApp, Telegram, and LinkedIn. Do join us. We'll be sharing the links in a while in chat box. Please share it with your family and friends who can also benefit from these. Just few rules to follow. This is a session for you, right? So let us all have maximum from this. Please stay muted. You can always use the chat box, the reaction buttons. You may also raise your hand if you have some queries. The speaker will be taking us through these slides, and we'll have a Q&A at the end. You may also take notes or screenshots as you like. So these are some of the previous sessions which we have been conducting on the NLG platform, right? We have already conducted 44 webinars, and today we are on 45th. It has been an amazing journey, and it goes on because of you audience being in here. Thank you for being here with us. Again, there are some of the sessions. There was an interview conference in beginning of this year on 9th Jan, which was great, and all the learnings from all the speakers. Do watch us on our Facebook channel or the YouTube channel, where you can find all of our recordings there. So, who is the speaker today? Miss Julia Macmillan. Thank you for accepting our invite and coming here to share your views on time management. She is a person with a wide experience of almost 30 years. She's the founder and managing director of The Learning Quest. She's MSc in Human Resource Development from the University of Portsmouth, UK. She is a mentor, a coach, and an extinguished speaker. She has been associated with different organizations and has been an ex-head of learning and development. Last one was with Poole Hospital NHS Trust, UK. Without much ado, I hand over the platform to you, Ms. Julia. Please welcome.
Okay. That's great. Thank you ever so much. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm very impressed, Jason and Shushma, with the work that you're doing in relation to learning and development and networking. So hats off to you in terms of setting this up and executing it. And I'm delighted to be here for the 45th webinar, which is fantastic. So I'm going to be sharing with you lots and lots of things that I've learned along the way in terms of time management. But just before that, what Shushma said is quite right. For the last 20 years, I've been running my own consultancy called The Learning Quest, where I specialise in training and development and coaching executives, etc. along the way. And you might wonder, why am I so sort of obsessed and fascinated by time management? Well, back in the very early 80s, when I first started a career, I was a teacher, and I stuck teaching just for 3 years, and then I actually bailed out. But as you can appreciate, I was sort of governed by the timetable, the bells that would go, etc., etc. And so I've got this sort of inner built fascination about time. And when I left teaching, I went into a corporate organisation in London, in the city. And again, this is in the 80s. One of the initiatives that the company took on board was something called total quality management. And total quality management was all about, improving things that we do. And one of the aspects associated with that was about time. And what we had to do at that particular time, when I was working in that organisation, was monitor meetings. We actually measured whether people turned up on time, whether the meetings overran, etc. We were plastering up on the wall different charts about meetings. So I've got this fascination about time. So I'm delighted to be here today to share some of the key things that I've learned along the way. So what I'm going to do is share a screen with you and my slides, and then we'll take questions at the end, if that's okay with everybody. So here we go. So hopefully everybody can see that.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Let me just come back. Right. Okay, let me just go back. So, first screen. So, this is all about maximizing your time and achieving a better work-life balance. So, what my intention is, within the length of this webinar, I'm going to be sharing with you stuff about time stealers, something that I call my 4 Ps model, and that's about procrastination. That's about the Pareto Principle. That's about prioritization, and it's also about the Pomodoro effect. I'm also going to be majoring on goal setting. And finally, I'd like you to try 3 days of content will have been uploaded to YouTube, and in the last 10 seconds, 100 people will have discovered the internet, which takes it to about 3 billion users. So just so much going on. So in terms of time management, I want to ask you, who or what might be stealing our precious time? The University of Columbia identified and did some research on 5,242 leaders, and they found that 78% of those leaders would be checking their emails on a constant basis. And out of that 78%, 34 would be checking them throughout the day, 39% would be checking them 1 to 3 times a day, 16% of those would be checking between 4 and 6 times a day, 9% would be checking 7 to 10 times a day. So sometimes we are checking our emails way too much, perhaps. So in terms of looking at who or what's stealing our precious time, what I'd like you to be thinking about, perhaps for after this webinar, is looking first of all, who or what might be stealing your time. And then once you've identified that, and it could be that you are checking your emails too much, or you're looking at your mobile phone, or there's constant interruptions. The second bit would be for you to put them in order and identify the biggest and the smallest time stealers, whatever they might be. And then the third thing really is to take time out to think about some workable strategies that you can think of that would minimize those time stealers. Just as an example, if you minimize checking emails, maybe you can turn off notifications. They all add to those big distractions, which I'm going to talk about a bit later on. And what they're doing, as you can appreciate, is they're distracting you from maxing out on your time management. So let's put time stealers to one side and look at procrastination. So you might think, oh gosh, what is procrastination? So this is the definition. Procrastination is the act of postponing, delaying, or putting off, especially habitually or intentionally. We all do it, I know, I'm guilty as anybody. The example I can give is that when I was doing my master's degree a few years ago, I had to do a dissertation and I had to analyse research that was coming in. And boy, did I procrastinate on that research. All it was that I was doing it by hand, I was analysing statistics. But whenever I knew I had to do it, would you believe I would get the Hoover out, I would clean the fridge, I would do all sorts of things, but not do the analysis. And for me, I found at the time that the reason why I was procrastinating was because I found the task boring, and actually it was very repetitive. So let's just think about why we possibly procrastinate. Could be that we set our expectations too high. It could be that we're relentless perfectionists. It could be we lack purpose. It could be that perhaps we let fear hold us back. Maybe we have bad self-management and we're a bit like a butterfly going from one thing to another thing. Maybe we only work until we've got that external pressure, until all of the tasks are backed up and we know that's it, I've really got to get down to it. Or perhaps we're victims of our own circumstances. The key really in relation to procrastination is not because we are lazy. That's really important. So maybe one of those might resonate with you if you think that you procrastinate. So let's think how we can overcome procrastination. And the way we can overcome procrastination is to think about 2 questions. The first one is, what pleasure will I get by doing this thing? And the second thing is, what pain will I feel if I don't do it? So let me share with you an example, and a really good example where I will put my hand up and say I procrastinate is going to the gym. I'm sure some of you might have very expensive membership to gyms, etc. The pleasure for doing this is I want to get energized, I want to feel fitter, etc. So that's the answer to that first question. The second question, actually went along. But in relation to answering those questions, we have to be really honest with ourselves and actually identify what goals we want for our future self and then write them down and start actioning them. So the other thing about overcoming procrastination is for you to spend time thinking, well, how do you demonstrate those dawdling tactics? That delaying, dilly-dallying, frittering, idling, and loafing. For me, as I've already said, I used to do the domestic chores, clean the fridge, that sort of thing. What's the reason behind them? For me, it was because I found the task of the analysis boring and repetitive. And in relation to that, I think you have to do some soul searching. And then the third thing is, what are you going to do to stop them? So in relation to that, it's very much about thinking about what sort of bite-sized things can you do that will overcome that procrastination. So let's put that first P, procrastination, to one side and move on to the second one, which is all about prioritizing your tasks. This is absolutely essential. And research conducted by the University of Missouri found that one of the main productivity determinants was to be able to prioritize. They found that what you need to have is something called an MIT, which stands for the most important task. And we all have lots and lots of tasks on a daily basis, but perhaps not always. We don't always identify which is the most important task. So let's just have a look at what actually an MIT is. So it's a critical task that will create the most important results that you're looking for. Not everything is critically important. However, what we tend to do in life is sometimes treat all the tasks with the same importance. We might think, what are the things that if I got them done today would make a huge difference? What would be your 2 to 3 most important things that you might need to do? And then you need to restructure your day in order to get those MITs done. So in terms of looking at an MIT, we need to think, well, let's imagine, well, not tomorrow because you're not working probably, but let's say it's Sunday and if you're in the UAE, you're back to work on Sunday. What would be your MITs for Sunday? Maybe you need to restructure stuff that you've got lined up in order to get those done. Maybe you need to eliminate potential distractions and interruptions in order to get those MITs completed. And then what about eliminating that internal conflict that sometimes we might have, which is around confidence or thoughts about, we maybe not are, wanting to do that. There might be some internal stuff going on in our internal heads. And what psychologists tell us is that the happy hormone, the dopamine, will kick in when we start ticking off things off our to-do list. So we need to be mindful about that. So let's leave our MIT and think about each day there's actually 1,440 minutes and 86,400 seconds. I don't have a magic wand, absolutely not. We know that the time is relentless, it's perpetual, there's no stopping. I can't stand here and say I can make you some more time. All we can do is actually be more effective in how we manage and we execute on it. So that's what I hope you might get out of this session today. So the third P in the 4 Ps model that I want to share with you is called the Pareto Principle. Now, you might think, what does that mean? Well, when I started looking into this, I found that it's all based on this individual on the right, and his name, which you believe, is called Alfredo Burrito, and this is where the Pareto Principle comes from. He was an Italian philosopher in about the late 1800s, and he was out working in his garden in about 1895, planting out some pea plants. And what he found as a result of this is 20% of his plants produced 80% of his healthy pea pods. What he also found was that meant that 20% of his activities will account for 80% of those results. And also 20% of your tasks will account for 80% of what you do, and so on. So in relation to this, what we need to think about is 20% of your customers will account for perhaps 80% of your sales, 20% of your services will account for maybe 80% of your profits, and 20% of your tasks might account for 80% of the value of what you do. So in relation to this principle, some questions we need to think about. First of all, how important is that task to the organization and the company? Is there anyone else there who could complete it? So could you delegate some of those particular tasks? And how could this task be accomplished if you only had half as much time? So in context, it means if you have a list of 10 things to do, 2 of those will turn out to be worth as much as the other 8. So wouldn't it be a good idea to spend some time analysing on perhaps a weekly basis and identify what's that 20% that's going to have the greatest impact? So now moving on to the 4th P that I'm going to talk about, is called the Pomodoro Technique. And again, this is something that I've come across in the last 2 years. And I think this is the secret to productivity around time. And it's all about maintaining focus and energy. So it's based on this individual called Francesco Cirillo. And what they did is they identified a method or a tool that will help you reduce distractions and boost productivity. And basically, it's a very, very simple tool. If you haven't come across it before, you spend 25 minutes of your full attention getting on with whatever task it is. And then at the end of that, you give yourself a 5-minute break, you reward yourself, and then you repeat the cycle. So this is what it looks like. So you identify your task for the day, set a timer, work for the duration of that. You can set the timer on your phone, work for that duration. Make sure you don't have any emails popping up or people dropping in to see you or anything like that. So you're giving your tasks your undivided attention. After the end of that, you give yourself a 5-minute break. And then every 4th break, you take a little bit longer, 15 to 30 minutes. And I think that's really, really an excellent tool. And I'll give you some more information about that in a minute. One of the reasons why I find it valuable is because when we look at distractions, there's a true cost to distractions. And I think this is inevitable, especially during the current climate where we've been, certainly in the UK, in lockdown, we've got the pandemic, and a lot of us are doing remote working. So the true cost of distraction is the length of the distraction. Plus, so on top of that, so you might have been distracted for a couple of minutes, add on to that 23 minutes and 15 seconds. This is just me coming up with an idea. This is based on real research, and that equals the true length of the distraction. Now, can you imagine? I think most of us will be distracted more than once. In fact, if I give you an example, let's say you're distracted 6 times in a day, and I think it's probably even more than that. Based on that information, it's going to take you 138 minutes or nearly over 2 hours to regain your focus back into that particular task or whatever it is that you're doing. So let me share with you an example. So a few years ago, I was coaching an individual, and she wanted me to coach her around time management. And I have to say, in terms of all of the people that I coach, time management is a really, really big topic that people want to help themselves with. So one of the key things with this individual is she was spending every month 3 days to generate a report. And it was just, she was really stressed out. She had so much going on. She had lots and lots and lots of distractions. And through the coaching and helping her identify different techniques, etc., she was able to cut that 3 days down for a report to 1.5 days per month. And that actually meant that that individual saved herself 18 days in the year. And that, I think, according to my maths, is something like, if you work a 7-hour day, there's 126 hours that she saved just by being more effective and mindful of what she actually did. And one of the biggest things that she had in terms of distractions was that she had this policy of an open door policy. People would come past her office. She was en route to the ladies' toilet, and people would drop in and say hello. So she was constantly being interrupted. So I think that's a really important thing to remember in terms of distractions. Let's go back to the Pomodoro effect or technique. here's some evidence that will help to sway your mind if you think it might not work. An author called Monica Leonelli, she had lots of success using this Pomodoro technique. And what she did, she used to write 600 words for her novels per hour. Using the Pomodoro technique, it went up from 600 words to 3,500, which by my reckoning is an increase of 583%, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So it's definitely worth giving it a go. I'm going to skip over this video clip, and Shushma is going to add that into the chat so that you can watch it later on. But some of the key things that will come out of that video clip, it's a TED talk basically, is about time is elastic, and what we need to do is actually try and find more bits of time during our day for bits of joy. And what we also need to do is think ahead to the future, but also then look back. And one of the things the lady in the TED talk talks about, her name's Laura Vanderkam, is that if we have something like an emergency or a broken pipe at home, we will get on and we will organise our time to sort that out. And basically what we should be doing is treating our priorities just like that broken pipe. So what I want us now to do is just move on in terms of our own internal thoughts around language and time management. And do you have running in your head language that's reactive language, like there's nothing I can do, that's just the way I am, he makes me so mad, they won't allow that, I have to do that, I can't, I must, if only, I don't have enough time, lots and lots of reactive thoughts. Because what happens is that it becomes entrenched in our views, beliefs and thoughts, which then will dovetail into a self-fulfilling prophecy. Sometimes it could be that we blame others, we don't take responsibility for our own actions. So that's the reactive language that might be running in our heads. Or alternatively, maybe it's proactive language, which would then give us more responsibility, which is, let's look at our alternatives. I can choose a different approach. I control my own feelings. I choose, I prefer, I will. So the question I want to pose to you is, what's your inner dialogue saying to you? Is that reactive or proactive around time management? So leaving that aside, again, another thing that you can do is just jot that question down and think about it after this particular seminar. Let's move on now to goal setting. So why do you think goal setting is so important to managing your own time? So it helps you focus where you're spending your time. It helps you prioritize what you're doing. It drives you forward and will hopefully motivate you more to reach that goal. And it will help you to generate an action plan to improve what you're doing. We've all heard of the SMART acronym, so I'll just quickly run over this: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. And I'm sure that in other seminars and webinars that you've heard that, so I'm not going to labour on that, but goals should have to fulfil that criteria. In terms of goal setting, some golden rules for goal setting are that we need to set goals that motivate you and look for those perhaps that are highest on your priority list. Set SMART goals, because in the American Psychology Association, what they say, and I love this, is that goals are like a lamp lighting your way. The brighter, the clearer the road ahead is going to be. So make sure that they're really bright and light SMART goals. Again, write them down. Don't keep them up in your head. Put a plan into action in relation to what those goals are, and then work that plan. So going on from those 5 golden rules, some research in the 60s by these individuals called Locke and Latham, they identified basically in field studies that 90% of time, specific and challenging goals would lead to higher performance than easy or do your best type goals. Try hard is going to be less effective than trying to get more than 80% correct or concentrate on beating your best time. So we're really drilling down into what that goal actually is. And also it's important, as we've already said, that you have a goal that's not too easy, otherwise it won't motivate you. And they came up with the 5 principles later on in about the 90s. The first one was that the goal has to demonstrate clarity, because you really, really do need to know exactly what it is you're trying to achieve. The next thing is about the more the challenging the goal, the more you'll be motivated towards it. You need to have commitment to whatever those goals are. They need to be meaningful and purpose, and everybody needs to understand what they particularly are. You need to be able to have feedback and listen to what's happening, so you know how you're working towards those goals. And lastly, you need to make sure that the task complexity isn't too overwhelming, otherwise you might not necessarily work towards them. And then if you wanted to, as a result of this webinar, what you could do after the session is actually try and set yourself some goals that fulfill the SMART criteria based on any one of these areas. So something about you doing fun, maybe something around a relationship or your career or your family, something social, maybe something related to your health, maybe something financial, or maybe something creative. So there we have it. I've gone through time stealers, and I've gone through 4 P's, which is procrastination, priorities, Pareto Principle, and the Pomodoro effect, and goal setting. And finally, my top tips for you before we go into the Q&A is unsubscribe. Maybe that's making you be distracted. Limit or turn off emails and notifications. Delegate and empower others. Prioritize what you're doing. Use that 80-20 rule or 20-80 rule in relation to the Pareto Principle. Minimize your procrastination, but you do need to first of all identify what that procrastination is all about. Try out the Pomodoro Technique, but do make appropriate choices and strategies that work for you, because that's what it's all about. We're all different individuals. But above all, be very, very protective of your time. You only get it once. So from today, hopefully, or this session, what I'd like you to do is think about what you can take away from the webinar to help you be even more effective with your time. Remember the Latin phrase, tempus fugit, which is time flies. And maybe it could be that you set yourself a challenge as a result of today. But finally, I want to leave you with some thoughts from Michelle Obama, and I think this is so true. We need to do a better job of putting ourselves higher on our own to-do. Okay, so that's the end of that. At the bottom of this slide, I've got my website and my email address, but if I stop sharing, and then we can go back to this, and I'll do any questions or etc. Okay.
Awesome, Julia. Thank you very much for the wonderful session. The principle of Pareto and the Pomodoro Technique, some basic points to take care of while procrastinating. How do we prioritize?
Yeah.
And how do we set goals, the golden rules, the 5 principles of clarity and whatnot. I have mentioned all those, but doesn't want to.
It's quite a lot, really.
Yes. It was wonderful learnings for me as well.
Good. So does anybody have any questions or?
Yes. And I would like to thank you that you have put in efforts, you have put in all together for us and given us in very clear and concise manner the best possible way, I would say, how do we manage our time, and so much of learning.
One thing I would say is that sometimes when you see presentations or things like this, you might know some of the elements, but actually it might be there's just one little nugget that you can take away, and it might just be that one little thing that you can do or tweak or do differently that will help you improve whatever it is. So I hope that at least, people have got something to take away.
Yes. The one thing which clicked me was the Pomodoro technique, though I know about it, but haven't practiced it. So 25 minutes and 5 minutes break, the example you gave in was definitely, it hit me like, okay, it's miracle can happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really good technique when you focus on doing something like that.
Great. Thank you very much. Yes, it's time that we jump into the Q&A. Any questions, do let us know. You can raise your hand, you can unmute and ask the question.
I have a question over here.
Yes, Sumit, please.
Good evening, Julia. My name is Sumit.
Hi, Sumit.
Hey, how you doing? All good?
Yes, very good.
Just a quick question. You mentioned two things about, how, first of all, thanks very much for this lovely session. This is amazing. I mean, something I've been looking forward to and trying to change myself.
Good.
So one question, two questions I'll ask. One is, you mentioned that about the Pomodoro effect. Okay,
Pomodoro Technique, yeah.
The Pomodoro Technique, let me say it nice. So you in one point you said it's small bits. Let's say 25 minutes of focusing on a work and then 5 minutes break, and then gradually increasing that 25 to 30. Can I put it that this is similar to the Kaizen technique? Can I say that?
You can. I don't know whether in the technique it is about. I think the technique's all about just keeping it in that small chunk. This is my interpretation anyway, so that you stick to the 25 minutes only, because if it gets bigger than that, you might then start getting distracted or what have you. Yes, it might be similar to Kaizen. I'm not that familiar with the Kaizen philosophy, but it could well be. But I think that if you give yourself a target of 25 minutes, you can really zone in, you can really focus on something. And then after that, you just can go and grab a cup of coffee, have a break, get a break, and then go back into that zone.
Great. My second question to you, you also mentioned in the same that time is elastic.
Right, time's elastic. Yeah. I think, go on, carry on.
Sorry. Being a science student, how can time be elastic? Time doesn't come back. It's like a line, it's like a ray of light. Time and numbers are never elastic. They never come back. So please help me explain.
I think once you've watched that TED Talk by Laura Vanderkamp, that's where the term time is elastic comes from. So I've sort of cribbed it from her. But I think the thing about it is that it's elastic for us because we have it in our power to do something about it.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's the key. It's about and I know, and because of what I've just said, every minute and every second will go. We won't be able to repeat that, but it's up to us to determine how we use that, and that's where the elasticity comes.
Okay, great.
That's my interpretation anyway.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So in this interpretation, time is elastic, that it doesn't come back. But yeah, time is not considered to be elastic in terms of science. But that's fine. Thank you very much.
It's up to us because we're the people in control, so we can flex it.
Yes,
absolutely. I think that's the key.
Yeah, cool. Thanks very much. I appreciate this.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, same here. Cheers.
Thank you, Sumit, for asking those questions, as it gave us more insights. Anyone has any questions, do let us know. Meanwhile, so how is I have done this exercise when during one of my trainings, that we need to note down the time stealers. In fact, we were asked to do a very minute exercise from each minute to each minute, from this time to this time, what do I do from this time? And that's where we noted, okay, what are my time stealers? What are my time robbers? Any addition to that, Julia? How can it be more effective? How to say no, probably?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think it's about being completely honest with yourself and doing some soul searching around time stealers, and actually taking time out to think in a typical day, maybe yesterday, what was it that I was doing during the day, and what was it that actually took my time away? And until we start to monitor that, we're not going to be able to do anything about it, because we just keep going on the treadmill. So is it that you're constantly being phoned, or you're constantly looking at your emails or notifications, or I don't know, Facebook notifications are pinging or whatever it is, the more we can actually identify, then we can do something about them. Otherwise, we'll just carry on. And there's that classic saying that I love, which is, if you always do what you've always done, you will always get what you've always got. So if you carry on the same way, you won't be able to change. That's why it's important. And everybody might have a different time stealer or several time stealers.
Yes, so true.
Yeah.
And I also loved the way you said, what is my self-talk? In your presentation, you had mentioned, what am I telling to myself?
Yeah, the sort of two different aspects, the proactive language and the reactive language.
Yes.
Are we running in our own head, or that reactive language, which is, oh, I haven't got time? We always say that, don't we? I haven't got time. Should we flip that and then start thinking about, well, you know, what can I do differently going forward in order to have, you know, more time and be more effective with our time?
Okay, so kind of changing it to positive affirmations.
Yeah, and like reframing it, and actually, again, it's about doing a bit of soul searching and being mindful about what have I got running in my head? What inner dialogue is running? Is that helping me? Is that bit helping me be useful with my time management, or is that hindering me, basically?
Great.
And again, you know, it's a case of we have to go away and actually just sit down and think, oh yeah, I have got those thoughts running in my head, and they're perhaps not as useful as another proactive language might be.
Lovely, lovely. So yes, need to sit down and see where my thoughts are in. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, good.
Thank you. There is the question, in field-based job, which requires a lot of traveling, how to come up with managing time when moving from one place to another, specifically in case of one time zone to another time zone based locations.
Okay, so in relation to that, so there's lots of traveling. So you will have time actually when you are doing some traveling that you might be able to utilize that time. So I'm thinking about, you know, listening to podcasts or doing work when you have got, if you're doing flights all the time, maybe there's some opportunities that you can actually max out on some of the time that you're traveling. But again, I think it's even more important because when you get to your destination, you might have only got a certain amount of time. So it makes it even more critical to be as effective as you possibly can in that destination you've got to. So I think that you've really got to major on time management because you know that you've only got a certain amount of time in that country. I don't know whether that helps.
Sure, thank you. One last question from him again, Adnan. So he has asked last question, setting up timetable to achieve the routine tasks and failing to follow it. What technique could be used to rectify this issue? Right,
so you've set a timetable up and you fail to follow it. So again, that's a little bit like procrastinating because you're moving away. So perhaps it's about you being very committed. Maybe you need to set yourself some targets and goals in order to get some of those things done, especially if it's fairly routine. It could be that there are lots and lots of distractions going on that are taking you away from achieving those specific goals. So perhaps it's about setting some more realistic goals or challenging goals even that will help you to achieve them. And of course, it could well be that you don't give yourself enough recognition when you've actually achieved those goals as well. Give yourself a reward. Go and get a donut or a chocolate bar or something.
Great. So rewarding.
Yeah, rewarding is really, really important. Or even it might just be actually going and having a break, having a cup of coffee, just for you to recognize that you've achieved something.
Sushma, I have a question. May I go ahead?
Please go ahead, Gitika.
Hi, Julia. Hi again.
Hi.
Thanks for the session. So many things, we know, but we fail to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Isn't that's true in life, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
My question specifically is with respect to the Pomodoro Technique. Actually, I was doing this when I was in my last job. I just didn't knew the name. I had read somewhere that you had. So for me, what happened was, when you are in a position like for especially in finance, when we have to finish our reports, I used to sit, but then the emails and the calls. And when you are at work, you are supposed to reply the emails constantly. Your personal email, you switch off the internet on your phone and it's handleable. But for work, you have to reply the calls and you have to answer the telephones. And sometimes they go beyond the hours and the 25 minutes and everything goes for a toss. So for me, I won't say I failed on the technique, but somehow, it kept on. But it works for me on the personal front. If I have to write my writing or anything, that time it works definitely. So anything to handle of the professional or when you're in office, that glitches, how do you handle them?
So just to reiterate then, that's about, is that sort of dealing with imposed targets that you might have?
Like if a colleague calls or your boss calls, you cannot just say, I want that.
Okay, yeah. So I understand. So obviously it might be that actually in a working week, there are only certain times that you could do the Pomodoro Technique. But it is also about you explaining and communicating to other people that actually for like the next 25 minutes, you're going to not want to be disturbed. But it's very much about you communicating to other people. And perhaps you have to explain to your boss, look, in order for me to complete this report, I am dedicating myself to the next 25 minutes to get this done. I appreciate it might raise issues, but I think it's about being as productive as you possibly can. And if at the end of the day, if you remember in the session I just mentioned about that lady I coached and she saved herself 18 days, if she explained to her boss to say, 1 day a week, you're not going to be able to get hold of me because I've actually got to get on and do the report. And they know that you're going to be even more productive. I think they would be acceptable about that. I think it's all about being really protective of your time. Otherwise, you're pulled in so many different directions and tasks take so much longer to do. I don't know if that helps, but that's
No, this helps actually. Yeah, it needs to be worked upon. Saying no is the key here.
Yeah, and it's about communicating as well. Very much about communicating.
True. Thank you, it helps.
That's okay.
I'm coming back again. I'm interjecting. So I have another last question for you, Julia.
Okay.
So this comes from the word called communication. Spending about 24 years in corporate world, I have realized that most of the problems or the politics, I'll put it quote unquote, they come from lack of transparency. And when we have lack of transparency, and there is miscommunication, there is communication, there is miscommunication, there is no communication, it is called silo. So how to improve on that? Because it's my opinion that also is a time waster when I manage my time, because you got to say, okay, I told you this before, why haven't you done this again? So does this also, communication also plays an important part in, as a time waster, it does. So how do you manage that? In most of the organizations, people don't love to communicate.
I was just going to say, I think in relation to the stuff that you talked about in terms of transparency and what, communication is the absolute key.
Yeah.
It's about influencing and persuading people and bringing them along with you on your journey.
Yeah.
So that if you are wanting to manage your time more effectively, hopefully other people will pick up on some of the things that you're doing and actually recognize that because of the new techniques or whatever it is you're doing, you are being even more productive. So it's all about communication and winning hearts and mind and influencing people, is my take on the thing.
But that's a leadership thing. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's a leadership thing.
Yeah. But I think it is very much about communication and influencing and what have you. there's never mention that there's a magic wand to it at all. But I think the more that you can communicate what you're trying to achieve, even if it's in a corporate side of things, and people can see that you're being even more productive, they will actually recognize that and think, oh, okay, well, if that person can do that, well, surely we should be sharing the techniques and the philosophies or the theories with other people.
Yeah, I agree.
Good.
But one last thing, does meditation help? Because when I do that, I since started doing this about a week ago, it really helps me. So
yeah,
to focus. Just to
yeah.
focus.
Yeah, and again, it's about, if meditation helps you, that's about, you relaxing and chilling out, and actually you will be able to remember some of these techniques and build them into a habit. We haven't talked about habits, but I think it's something like it takes 21 days to build a habit, and we have all got habits that we've developed over the years that we stick to, but actually it's a case of recognizing, let's change our habits a little bit, do things a bit different, and try and build that into a habit going forward.
Absolutely. So on this platform, may I take the liberty to ask the organizers to organize something from your end on a habit? Would love to participate on that. So this is my request to the organizers, to request from my side. I'm in for the habit session. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So definitely. Thank you, Sumit, for your suggestion. We'll definitely look into it.
Thanks.
And thank you for your queries. Okay, any more questions, any more comments? Please feel free to ask. Julia is here for next few minutes, and then we can close the session otherwise. Jason, over to you. Anything from your side?
No, thank you so much. I have been fortunate to attend Ms. Julia's session on time management while I was in my previous company. And this slot was stretched to hold 3 days. So for 3 days content, she had delivered within half an hour. So you the content, the depth of the content, and also one of the testimonial I wanted to share here is Julia is a coach, and she follows up on each personalized like character. For example, she had completed the time management course of almost 20 to 25 people in Seva. And then she followed up with each person, I think for over a month, whether they followed the time management principles through email. And we had to report back to Julia because she flew back to UK. And we had to report back to Julia through email and what we encountered, the difficulties, whether we followed back. And I think she got the results from at least a few bunch of people who attended the workshop. It is a fantastic experience, and still I have the notes and the books and everything with me. And thank you, Julia, for spending so much time and delivering this free course for all the participants of NLG. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Something I was going to mention is I have got a number of books that I can recommend. So if anybody wants a book list, feel free to drop me an email. If you want to, Jason or Shushma, put in the message or the chat my email address. And people want to drop me an email, I'll happily send you a list of books if you want to, know even more about time management.
Sure.
We'll drop the email just now. I mean, Julia at the learning.
Yeah, Julia at thelearningquest.co.uk.
I'll put it in the chat box, right?
And feel free to. I've just written a blog on time management, which links to a couple of the points that I've mentioned. So again, take a look at my website, and you can read my blog. And there's another one I think on resilience as well.
Great.
I think we can wind up for the day session.
Okay.
Yes. I will just share my screen. A quick note. So, since we virtually meet here, Julia, this is a virtual bouquet for you.
Lovely,
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here and sharing your experiences, your knowledge.